From the newsrooms of the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, this is Please Explain. I'm Samantha Selinger-Morris. It's Thursday, August 10. Last week, 5 people sat down for a family lunch in a small town in Victoria's southeast. But that lunch would soon turn into a tragedy. Within a week, 3 of those people would be dead, and 1 would be in hospital in critical condition. All of them suffered symptoms consistent with the ingestion of death cap mushrooms. Today, crime reporter Marta Pascual Juanola joins me to discuss the mushroom poisoning case gripping the nation. So Marta, this is a very peculiar story, and I'm thinking that the best way to talk about it is to step through what we know happened chronologically. So can you start at the beginning?
Yeah, so this entire story takes place across 2 really small communities in Gippsland in the southernmost tip of Victoria, one being Leongatha and the other one being the nearby town of Korumburra. So it involves 2 separate families from Korumburra who went to a lunch event in Leongatha nearby. At that lunch on July 29, a woman called Erin Patterson essentially invited her in-laws and their relatives over for a meal.
The small Victorian community in South Gippsland remains in disbelief this morning after 3 people died and another fights for life after suspected mushroom poisoning.
And then immediately after that night, all 4 guests started feeling unwell with gastro-like symptoms.
A day later, they fell violently ill and went to hospital.
Within 24 hours, they were at the local hospital, and after that, they were transported to Dandenong Hospital and then later on to the Austin in Melbourne, where doctors ascertained that they had what they thought were mushroom poisoning.
Last Friday night, 70-year-old Gail and 66-year-old Heather died in hospital. By Saturday, 70-year-old Don also passed away. Police say their symptoms align with that of eating toxic mushrooms known as death caps.
Right, and so specifically they had gastro-like illness. Can you tell us a bit about, the symptoms?
Yeah, so it was anything from cramps, vomiting, just feeling generally unwell. And then eventually, in the case of Ian Wilkinson, who is the sole survivor of the lunch of the 4 that fell ill after eating, in his case, it also includes liver damage.
Okay, so you mentioned one of the guests at the lunch there. So what do we know about the people who were at this meal? Who exactly was there, and how did they know each other?
Right, so it's very much a family affair, and I think that's why it's captivated a lot of the attention of people in both towns, in Leongatha and Korumburra. So the person that police say prepared the meal is Erin Patterson, who lives in Leongatha in the outskirts of town. She is the daughter-in-law of one of the couples that attended the lunch, that being Don and Gail Patterson, and also present at the lunch were Ian Wilkinson and his wife, Heather Wilkinson. Ian is a pastor in the town of Korumburra, and his wife, Heather, she is Gail's sister. So essentially, it was very much a family affair. And at that lunch were also the 2 young kids, Erin's 2 young kids. So that is a boy and a girl that are still in school age, were also present there, but did not get sick after eating.
And can you tell us a little bit about the community that they're from? I understand it's very tight-knit and it's quite religious.
Correct. So in the town of Korumburra, it's quite a conservative and religious little town. So there's 2 or 3 churches, and they all kind of combine together to hold services and events together. So pretty much everyone belongs to one or the other congregation. And so Ian Wilkinson, being the pastor of the Baptist church in town, he was very much a backbone of the local community. So both Ian and Heather and Don and Gail were well known in town for being really active community members. So Heather, Gail and Don all worked at the secondary college in town. Gail and Don also edited the local newspaper. It's like a little gazette that comes out a few times a year where, local clubs kind of talk about the events that are coming up. So they were very much embedded in the local community. And in the case of Ian and Heather, their neighbors and friends tell me that they were some of the most loved and well-respected people in town. There were some of those neighbors that would bake freshly made cookies for people moving into the neighborhood, that would go and mow the lawn of their neighbors. They the kind of people that would always turn the other cheek and help each other out. They didn't sweat, they didn't drink, they didn't smoke. They were known to go around for walks both to church and, to the shops. And so they were very much, everyone in town either knows or is a close friend of one of the couples.
Right, and in the days after the couples became sick and 3 died, Erin Patterson, the person who cooked the lunch, she's become a prime suspect in their deaths. So how did that come to be?
So the main reason why Erin became the main suspect straight away is because she's the one that cooked the meal. However, she did not fall ill and neither did her children. So just by that very fact, she kind of became a person of interest. And so that's how it sort of evolved from there and to become a main suspect. And we know that on Saturday just gone, her house was raided. She was interviewed by police and released without charge, which kind of indicates that she is a person of interest.
So she has been seen in the media visibly very upset and speaking with great emotion about these family members of hers that became sick and died. So can you tell us about what she has said about her family?
So she spoke to the media really briefly outside of her house.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
Media had been parked outside for some time and she had tried to avoid speaking to the media for some time, but eventually she did decide to address the issue. And what she said was that she was very sorry that people had lost their lives as a result of this.
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Ian and Heather and Gail, who were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
She said that she was very distraught by the tragedy and what had happened. She described the family, her in-laws, as some of the greatest people she had ever met.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me.
She said they had never done any harm.
And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me and I'm so devastated about what's happened.
She said she hadn't done anything.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about
Yes,
that?
I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope with every fibre of my being that Dawn pulls through.
And yeah, that it would be a great loss to the community and her children, because let's not forget that her children have also lost their grandparents in this, being Dawn and Gail.
Can you tell us
And the loss to the community and to the families and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened.
So can you help us understand what's happened in more recent days? Because the police are still investigating the issue. Erin is still a suspect, and I understand that police have seized items from her home. So tell us more about that.
Yep, so as a result of the police raid on Erin's house, they recovered a number of items that were seized. We don't know what those items are yet. Police have remained pretty tight-lipped about what it is that they have seized. But we do know that officers found a food dehydrator at a local tip in Gippsland, and they are now doing forensic tests on the dehydrator to try to determine whether it is connected to the case and whether it could be a possibility that she could have dehydrated some mushrooms that then ended up in that meal that was cooked. And another thing that's emerged since, it's a Facebook post from Erin's estranged husband, Simon, who reported having gastrointestinal issues back in 2022 that were really unexplained. He had to spend some time in ICU, potentially up to 3 weeks. And police are probing whether there could be any kind of connection between this and the case.
Okay, so this is where the case starts to feel murky. And as a reporter following this case really closely, can you tell me about the questions that you are still trying to get answers to that could help piece together what exactly happened here?
Yeah, so it's very much one of those stories where you just don't know yet quite what happened. And I think it's become really murky. Police are being very cautious in what they said and what they don't say. And the community is also remaining pretty tight-lipped because the family have requested privacy. And so there's a lot that we know, but there's also a lot that we don't know. And some of those burning questions that we have is, what did she serve her guests exactly? What is it that they ate? Why didn't Erin and her children fall ill if they shared a meal with the other 4? Did they eat separate meals? What were those? mushrooms? Also, if it is dead cat mushrooms, where did those come from? And those are questions that Erin herself did not address when asked by the media outside her house on Monday. She would not say where the mushrooms come from or what meal she had cooked for her guests. So those are some of those burning questions, as well as whether that food dehydrator is connected.
So those are some fairly basic questions. And as you say, we still don't even know what she cooked, who ate what. And this lunch happened almost 2 weeks ago at this point. So why is it taking so long to get answers?
Yeah, I think it's a really complex investigation in this case, just to try to establish exactly what went down and the steps that were followed. Obviously, I think police are being very cautious in the way they approach this, partly because we can't forget the fact that even though homicide detectives are investigating this, that does not mean that a murder has been committed. So there's still very much a possibility that Erin accidentally put those mushrooms in the food in one way or another that might have led to that poisoning. So I think it's a matter of police really being really careful, making sure that they cross all their T's and dot all the I's to make sure that they don't jump to conclusions or that they don't paint a picture that is the incorrect one here.
Plus, I guess it's complex. How do you prove intent that someone did want to poison someone if it's even suspected that this is the case?
Exactly. And intent is a difficult thing to prove at the best of times with most crimes. How do you prove that Erin set off potentially to poison everyone? Could it just be that she accidentally went to forage the wrong kind of mushrooms? Could it be that she had no idea what was in the food? Could it be that there was some kind of tempering? And proving that someone purposely did something is really complicated.
And I guess it's that point about whether this was accidental, whether it was purposeful, that makes this a case that really has captured the imagination of the public. So Marta, how is the community making sense of all of this? You've spent the last week there, so what was the mood like?
I think it's a tense mood at times. I feel like locals there are very protective. It's a very tight-knit community, and they feel like, they've got all these outsiders, including journalists, kind of coming in, flooding the town, asking all these questions about people that they cared and loved about. And I think there's a lot of mixed feelings because everyone in town, like I mentioned earlier, knew one of the couples involved, and they knew Erin as well, and they knew Erin's husband, Simon, and they know the kids, and they might go to school with their kids. And so I think there's an element of people are actively grieving. They're really numb still about what happened. But at the same time, there's all these questions that play in their mind, because I think the fact that we don't know whether foul play was involved yet, it opens the door to all this wondering. And it's a small town. Rumors are rife, people speculate. And so I think there's a lot of mixed feelings at the moment. I think an evidence of that is the fact that people are also sending flowers to Erin as well as laying flowers at the church. There's people that feel very strongly about Erin's potential involvement, and there's other people that feel really sorry that she's at the heart of this media circus.
And so what's next? When will we know more?
That's a great question. Everyone you talk to that's involved in the police investigation will tell you that this is a slow burn, that it might be a little while yet until we've got answers. Even forensic testing on those who passed away might take several weeks to come back. So it'll just be a matter of waiting and seeing, I think, for a lot of it, for answers to come out.
Marta, thanks so much for your time. We'll look forward to hearing from you more on this story as it progresses.
Thank you for having me.
Today's episode of Please Explain was produced by Margaret Gordon. Our executive producer is Ruby Schwartz. Please Explain is a production of The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. If you enjoy the show and want more of our journalism, subscribe to our newspapers today. It's the best way to support what we do. Search The Age or smh.com.au/subscribe. I'm Samantha Selinger Morris. This is Please Explain. Thanks for listening.